RimWorld has given us some incredible DLCs over the years, each one adding new systems that don't just expand the game, but help turn it into one of the most interesting and replayable games out right now. It's been about 6 months since the last DLC dropped, and with Odyssey, we saw RimWorld take a massive leap back into space, something the community had been asking for years. Before that, we had Anomaly, which introduced strange events, terrifying enemies, and encounters that might help you or completely ruin your colony when you least expect it. So, the big question is, what's next for RimWorld? What is up, y'all? My name is Vessi, and in today's video, I'm going to be predicting what the next RimWorld DLC could be based on past expansions and what I think the game needs most moving forward. If you enjoy the video or like any of these ideas, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you have your own DLC ideas, drop a comment and I'd love to read them. For my first prediction, I think the next RimWorld DLC could focus heavily on industry, manufacturing, and construction. And honestly, this is something the game has been slowly building toward for a long time. Right now, RimWorld's production system is solid, but once you reach the late game, it starts to feel solved. You set up a few workbenches, optimize your colonist, and after that, it's just waiting for the next raid. A DLC like this could introduce advanced manufacturing chains, things like multi-step production, specialized facilities, and even assembly line style setups that make large colonies feel more like real industrial cities instead of just bigger versions of early game bases. On the construction side, this could finally be where we see vertical building come to RimWorld. Basements for storage, bunkers, or even power systems, and second or third floors for housing, workshops, or defense. Suddenly, base layout becomes a lot more interesting than just spreading out across the map. This would completely change how colonies are designed. You could build compact, dense cities, underground facilities, protected from raids, or elevated positions that actually matter for combat and defense. And most importantly, a DLC like this would make the late game feel challenging again. By turning colony design, space management, and long-term planning into problems you're always solving, not just things you finish once and forget. My second prediction focuses on colony security, defense, and large-scale faction warfare. Where you choose to settle could directly affect how often you're attacked and which factions become your allies, with your actions having real lasting consequences on the world around you. Instead of the world map just being a place you send caravans to trade, it could become an active, evolving battlefield. Factions could fight each other over territory, resources, and influence, with borders constantly shifting as wars are won and lost. Imagine teaming up with your allies to siege an enemy colony, breaching their defenses, pillaging their resources, and then capturing and kidnapping their former residents for ransom, recruit, or imprisoning back at your own base. Or traveling to an active battlefield and seeing trenches carved into the terrain, two factions locked in a brutal fight while gunfire and explosions erupt around you. You could choose to intervene, reinforce one side, or tip the scales entirely, deciding who controls that region when the fighting ends. Your colony wouldn't just be reacting to raids anymore, you'd be participating in a living war. Staying neutral could mean being surrounded by enemies, while choosing sides could reshape the balance of power across the entire planet. Security systems at home could go far beyond turrets and kill boxes. Imagine patrol routes, scouting parties, guard posts, and early warning systems that could give you time to prepare before an attack ever reaches your walls. Raids could be tied directly to world events, retaliation after battles, coordinated assaults during war, or strategic strikes against colonies that control valuable land or trade resources. And in the late game, conflict could escalate even further. If there's a faction that's been a constant thorn in your side, raiding you non-stop, sabotaging trade, or threatening you or your allies, why should pollution drop pods be the limit? Imagine unlocking devastating late-game weapons like long-range missiles or planet-level super weapons. Instead of a raid, you could choose to wipe out the competition entirely, erasing enemy settlements from the world map and quite possibly changing the world as a whole. Of course, this kind of decision would have consequences. Other factions might fear you, they might unite against you, or treat your colony as a global threat. But for players willing to embrace total war, it would offer a brutal, decisive way to end conflict once and for all. For my third prediction, I think RimWorld could be heading toward a much deeper trade, economy, and law system, one that makes your choices on the world stage actually matter long term. Right now, trading is pretty straightforward. There aren't even dynamic market prices. It's basically just buy item, sell item, and move on. But imagine a world where regions have their own economies, resources actually matter, and trade routes rise and fall depending on wars, alliances, and environmental conditions. Your colony could become a major trade hub or a black market powerhouse. Smuggling, illegal goods, and underground trade networks could offer huge rewards, but with a serious risk attached if you get caught. This is also where law and justice could come into play. Instead of prisons just being holding cells, you could see real legal systems, trials, sentences, forced labor, maybe even executions or prisoner exchanges with other factions. And instead of you always being the one imprisoning everyone else, imagine the system works both ways. What if one of your colonists gets caught selling illegal substances to another colony and is arrested? Suddenly it's not just a mood debuff. You're forced to make a choice. Maybe you launch a rescue operation to break them out by force. Maybe you send your best social pawn as a lawyer or a negotiator, trying to argue their case and reduce their sentence. Or maybe you fail and have to watch your colonists be executed for their crimes, permanently affecting your colony and the story of your playthrough. Systems like this would push RimWorld's justice system and economy far beyond simple punishment, turning crime into meaningful, story-defining moments instead of just something every player does because there are no real consequences. For my fourth prediction, I think that the next RimWorld DLC could take a deep dive into psychology and mental health, turning your colonist minds into systems as complex as their bodies and the colonies they build. Right now, mental breaks exist, but they're often short-lived and mostly just affect work and mood. Imagine a system where trauma lingers. Colonists remember violent raids, the death of friends, or even witnessing an execution. PTSD, anxiety, or phobias could follow them for months or even years, maybe a lifetime, shaping how they act and interact with others. Therapy, counseling, and long-term recovery could become critical. Do you assign a trained colonist to help a traumatized friend, or do you ignore their struggles and risk social collapse? Maybe a colonist slowly drifts into isolation or personality changes affecting relationships, marriages, and alliances within your colony. Those systems would reinforce RimWorld's core identity as a story generator. Every raid, every tough moral decision, every crisis could leave mental scars that ripple through the colony, creating unique, unpredictable narratives every single playthrough. By making mental health as important as food, shelter, and defense, a DLC like this could make your colonies feel more alive, your decisions weightier, and your stories far more memorable. Prediction number 5 takes us into the environment itself, how biomes, wildlife, and climate could become much more dynamic and impactful in the next DLC. Right now, biomes are mostly static and wildlife is predictable, but imagine long-term biome shifts, droughts, floods, wildfires, or even natural disasters causing rapid change to your environment and the area around you, forcing you to adapt or relocate. Picture this. A wildfire is spreading across multiple tiles near your colony. You have to make a tough decision. Do you build fire breaks to slow its spread? Or maybe you risk sending your colonist out to help rebuild an ally's colony that was struck by a meteor. Every choice could have consequences that ripple through the entire region. And these changes won't just happen locally. A catastrophic event across the world, like a volcanic eruption, massive flood, or shifting climate, could ripple outward and directly impact your colony, creating challenges you couldn't have anticipated. Animal behavior could also get a major overhaul. Right now, animals wandering into your colony feels completely random. What if overpopulation could become a real problem? Animals would reproduce dynamically, forcing you to manage herds carefully, or risk starving animals, raiding your crops, spreading disease, or destabilizing local ecosystems. Even mundane ecosystems could have more depth. Rivers, lakes, and oceans could support fishing, giving you new ways to gather food and interact with the environment, while overfishing or mismanagement could have long-lasting effects on both your colony and the local environment. Environmental collapse could become a real threat. Fail to manage resources properly, and you might face food shortages, disease, or more aggressive wildlife moving into your territory. A DLC like this would make RimWorld feel alive in an entirely new way. Colonies would no longer just survive the events that happen to them, they'd have to actively adapt to a changing, breathing world full of challenges and opportunities. Lastly, for my final DLC prediction, we have the Exploration expansion. With Odyssey, we can now travel through space, but one thing we're desperately missing is riding animals. We can fly a spaceship, yet we can't ride a horse. Ground vehicles could completely change the game. Cars, trucks, or even trains could make trading and long-distance travel much easier, while adding a new layer of strategy for moving resources and colonists across the map. Now imagine taking to the sky. Planes could be used to trade massive amounts of goods, or potentially used as a weapon. Helicopters could carry colonists on special operations to strike enemy factions, scout dangerous areas, or rescue an ally in crisis. And then there's the ocean. Possibly the biggest feature players want right now is for the water to actually matter. Boats and ships could range from trade vessels to warships, or maybe even we allow players to build floating cities or underwater bases. Of course, enemies would have to have access to all of this too, which could lead to some amazing moments in RimWorld. A DLC like this would make RimWorld feel bigger than ever, letting players explore, trade, fight, and shape the world in ways we have never seen before. And with that though, guys, we've come to the end of another RimWorld video. If you enjoyed, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and only you can help make that possible. And if you have any ideas for future DLC or want to add on to any of my predictions I shared, let's discuss it down in the comments, and I'll try and respond to every single one of you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.